Hi everyone. Happy Wednesday to you all. We should just be now getting connected with Facebook. Let me just jump in and just see how we're doing. Hope your week is going well. Let me just jump in here, and yeah, looks like we're online now. I'm just going to wait a few minutes here, just to wait for everyone else to jump in. Let me just come and share my screen. Just bear with me for a moment. Here we go, share screen. Okay. Good. So we should be live now. So as I said, today's session, these sessions are 30 minutes long. We just really try and keep things to, try and focus on the key points here. But today we're talking about how to bring in a VA or a virtual assistant into your cleaning business. It is one of the most common things that I get asked about within my own cleaning business. And the way that I teach it, for the students who go through my coaching program, is to gradually bring in a VA into your business, and that represents a relatively low risk, a low financial investment to begin with as well. So I'll just wait for a few final minutes. For those of you who are on Facebook, you drop me a message, say hello, tell me where you're dialing in from. Any questions, just drop a comment, and I will drop into the Facebook group, a couple of times through the presentation and ask those or answer those questions for you. For the guys who are on Zoom, same thing. You can just leave me a message in the Zoom chat, and I will try and pick that up as we go along as well. So we'll just wait a couple of more minutes, and I will jump into the slide here. Hi Brianna, hope you're well. Hey Becky. So let's jump into the slide now and get started in the next minute or so. So let's get started. So today's session is how to bring a VA into your cleaning business. So there's a couple of sort of key areas that I wanted to spend this session on, and the first part is just this top section here, and I'm really trying to drill down into you how important a VA is, or an office manager is, as you look to grow your business. So the evolution of a cleaning business owner, as I see it, is that many of us, me included, will have started out doing some of the cleaning ourselves at the very start of our business. We would have been cleaning homes or cleaning offices, and that was very much the day-to-day. So one of the things that is always being talked about is working on your business rather than in your business. And this is a very, very key and important point, because what you find is that the more time that you can spend on thinking of how you grow your business, the better, the quicker your company will grow, funnily enough. So if you are spending all your time cleaning people's homes or cleaning offices, then you don't have much time at the end of the day to think about, how do I advertise? How do I find my new clients? So the VA part is really important, because once you move yourself, as you start to think about transitioning from being in the field to being out of the field, that is a huge step, because you are, reducing the amount of time that you're doing cleaning, and that means you're freeing up time to think about, how do I grow the business? But the next stage from that is trying to think about bringing in a VA. And the reason why a VA is really important is because there will be lots of tasks that you do in your business that are relatively low value. There are the repetitive tasks that could be outsourced to someone, a virtual assistant, an office manager, and this further frees up your time, because, as I say here, one of the number one focus as a business owner should be growth strategy. You know, we should be spending ideally all of our time thinking, how do we grow our cleaning business? And if we are not spending the time doing that, then obviously, you know, the company won't grow as quickly. You know, if we are on the phone with clients all the time, you know, giving them online quotes or quotes over the phone, you know, we are spending less time on growth strategy. If we are dealing with client complaints, or if we are doing telephone interviews with our cleaners, the same thing. You know, we are spending more time doing that, and that time it takes away from the primary thing that we should be spending our time doing, and that is thinking about how we grow our business. So it could be thinking about where can we find our ideal clients? You know, where are they? Are they on Google? Are they on Facebook? Are they you know, reading certain magazines or certain publications? You know, it's those types of things we need to be thinking about. And related to that is obviously recruitment. So, you know, we can't grow our business unless we are increasing our clients at the same rate we're increasing our cleaners. So recruitment is a core part of this growth strategy as well. So the more time that we can focus as business owners thinking purely about how do we grow our business, the quicker we'll grow. It sounds extremely obvious, but you know, this is really the mindset we need to be in. So step one, evolution of the business owner, a cleaning business owner, get yourself out of the field. Step two, go from being out of the field, running day-to-day operations as an office manager type, to handing or thinking about handing over some of those repetitive tasks. And that frees up more time for you as the business owner to think about growth strategy. So as I said here, the less time that we can spend on these daily repetitive and often low value tasks, the more time we have to think about growth strategy, and the faster we'll grow. It's as simple as that. So this is why this topic about bringing in a VA is so important. So the key thing, the key asset that limits us, or is the bottleneck for us growing our business, is our time. You know, we can, you know, it's not money, it's time. So, you know, we can raise money from various places. We can get a loan, we can ask friends and family to invest. You know, if you're a very big company, you can get other external financial institutions to invest, but you can't do anything to increase the amount of time you have in the day. So this is why using your time wisely is extremely important for us as business owners, because ultimately, if we are using our time unwisely, it means that we're probably spending less time on growth strategy. It means that our companies won't grow as quickly. So this point here talks about trying to put a number on what you think your hourly rate is as a business owner. And this is you know, a point that, you know, I get asked about quite a lot, and I'll say to people, you know, to the students that go through the program, about, you know, talking about VAs and thinking about, well, how much do I pay a VA? You know, do I bring someone in who lives near where I live, or do I get someone from overseas? You know, what is expensive for a VA? What is cheap? And I always go back to the question of thinking about, you know, if you as the business owner had to put an hourly rate on you, your time, what would that be? So as an example, let's say it's $100 an hour. So, you know, for you, you know, if you say my time is worth $100 an hour, in theory, anything less than $100 an hour should be done by someone else. And that frees up your time to do $100 an hour work. So if you had one task that you were doing, you know, it took 1 hour, the value of your time to do that one task for 1 hour is $100. If you found someone to do it for at $50 an hour, which is obviously really expensive for a VA, but say that same VA can do the same task in an hour for $50, by simply outsourcing that task to someone else, you have made $50, 100 minus 50. So the theory says, if you can find people to do tasks for the same amount of time and the same quality level, but at a lower hourly rate, then you should do that. Your time is a finite resource. So the more that you farm off these lower value tasks, the better, because it frees up your time, and your time is more valuable spent on other things than some of these low value tasks. Your time is spent far more wisely as the business owner, thinking about, how do I grow this thing? How do I grow my business? So it's worth thinking about this. There's no right or wrong answer, but where we're going with this is, as we go into this second section here, is thinking about, well, as an example, we've got some outstanding invoices for these offices that we clean. We just need someone to get on the phone to these 10 people today, and just to try and speak to them, and if they don't get through, leave a message and then send them an email. We can get someone, a VA, to do that for us. That is certainly not $100 an hour task that we as business owners should be doing. So this is where we start to get into this mindset of trying to figure out which tasks in our business are relatively low value, which can be farmed out to someone else, a VA. That then frees up our time to do $100 an hour work, or whatever hourly rate you think your time is worth. That time should primarily be focused on growth strategy. And if you do that, if you spend more time on growth strategy, 100% your company will grow quicker. So it really is as simple as that. So this is really, I just wanted to drill down how important it is, as business owners, that we try and get people into our business to do these tasks, because it will just mean that our businesses grow quicker. So what I'll quickly do is I'll just jump back into the Facebook group. Let me see if there's any questions. Looks like we're okay for the time being. So let's go on into the second section here. So let's talk about the actual nitty-gritty about how we get a VA into our business, how we recruit them, how we onboard them. And this point here is the most important step, arguably, and it is using or creating a process document, a process handbook or process document to begin with. This is something I spoke about a couple of weeks ago in one of the other lives, about setting up systems and processes in your business. So if you haven't watched that, go back to it and watch it. In essence, what the process handbook is basically, it lays out every single task that you do within your business, and it attempts to categorize them by type. So it could be, for example, these specific tasks could be client management type tasks, or these specific tasks could be recruitment type tasks, or these could be admin software type tasks. So we try and categorize that. We also look at the amount of time spent in these tasks. And, from that, what we can do is get a better feel of which are the higher value tasks and which are the lower value tasks. So the higher value tasks, as I said, should be anything where we can grow the business. So a super high value task would be me as a business owner reviewing our marketing channels, understanding which is getting us the highest ROI, and putting more money into that. If that task isn't done, we are not using our marketing spend effectively enough. The growth of our business will suffer. So this is an example of a really high value task. A low value task is, as I said before, a low value task might be chasing outstanding invoices. It can be done by you as the business owner. It can be done by a VA. It can be done by anyone. There's not a huge amount of skill in terms of dialing a phone and asking when we can expect an invoice to be paid. So when you create this process document, one of the steps after doing that is trying to figure out which of these repetitive tasks, which of these low value tasks and low risk tasks as well. So when I talk about low risk, I'm thinking more in terms of the client facing tasks, new cleaner facing tasks. So, an example of a high risk task would be, one of your biggest commercial accounts calls you up. They're really unhappy with the service. They want to cancel. If you gave that task to a VA who hadn't got a lot of experience with managing these sorts of things, there is a high chance that that client will just say, yeah, we just want to cancel. So, depending on how they manage that interaction, how they manage that call, there is a large risk that that client will cancel anyway. So generally, any tasks that are a higher risk, which could potentially have a big financial impact on your business, you want to try and bring in VAs to begin with to focus on low risk tasks, because those low risk tasks, if they don't do it right, or it takes a bit of time for them to get to understand how to manage it, it's not going to have a big financial impact on your business. So your process document should form the basis of identifying these low value, these repetitive low value and low risk tasks. And that is the way you want to think about bringing in your VA, is to start to give them some of these types of tasks. So we now know the type of work that we want to bring people in, the VAs for. This will obviously help with recruitment, because in our recruitment ad to find these VAs, we can say these are the types of tasks you'll be expected to do. We can look at their background, their experience, and see, do they have any experience with these types of tasks? Because VAs differ hugely in terms of experience. You might have VAs that specialize in certain industries. You might have VAs that specialize in customer service, or VAs that specialize in recruitment. So you want to know what your tasks are upfront before you even create this recruitment ad to find your VA. So that's a big step. You need to know the process document, figure out these tasks. If you haven't watched the live from a couple of weeks ago, go back to it and just refresh yourself on the way that, the way to do it. So that is the first point. The second point here is also a key one, because many people, that get in touch with me asking about VAs seem to think that, to bring on a VA, you need to do it once the business is a sufficient size, once it's making lots of money, you probably bring on a VA, full time, or, at least, half the week, so there's obviously, with that approach, there is a big financial commitment. And, if you do that to begin with, the business isn't generating enough profit to pay for the VA. So, if you use that approach, then absolutely you need to grow your business to a stage where it's generating enough profit so that that profit can pay for this VA. But the way I teach it is that we can actually bring in a VA far earlier into our business than many people think. So VAs can be typically paid on an hourly basis. And, in theory, what you can do is you can get a VA to work with you a couple of hours a week at the beginning. As I said, maybe at the end of each week, there's a handful of outstanding invoices. Rather than you doing that, get the VA to come in for a couple of hours, log in for a couple of hours and chase those outstanding invoices. It only needs to be a couple of hours a week. You don't need to bring in someone to begin with on 20 hours a week or 40 hours a week. So by bringing the VA in very gradually to begin with, this means that the financial burden, the financial impact of having a VA in your business is far less. So there's far less risk as well, because, to pay for a VA for a couple of hours, depending on where they're based in the world, you don't really need to be generating that much money to pay for it. So the way that I teach it in my program is that we bring in the VA, for a handful of hours to begin with. We see how they work, and if we find a VA that we like and we're confident in, we just gradually increase their hours. So what you can see here is, as your business grows, you can allocate, as your business grows, it makes more profit, it allows you to pay more hours a week for the VA. And eventually you'll get to a stage where you can have a VA, your business is big enough to have a VA completely full time, and you've basically replaced your job as the day-to-day operations manager effectively, and you are now paying a VA to do that for you. And this is really, one of the steps, going from a day-to-day business owner to an absentee business owner. Like me, I spend 2 hours a week in my business, and we're in 4 cities, and it's because we have a team of office managers, a team of VAs that run the day-to-day side of the business for us. So the beauty about bringing in a VA into your business sooner rather than later is that you are able to free up more of your time sooner in your business so that you can focus on growth strategy. So one of the hardest things to do, for a startup business, a small business, is to grow the thing. You are spinning lots and lots of plates. And actually what you should be doing is trying to figure out, how do I grow this business? How do I grow it? Because getting things moving is the hardest thing to do. So by bringing in a VA, maybe within the first few months of being in your business, rather than say 9 months down, you've freed up all this time earlier on, and it's likely that your business will grow quicker with a VA than without. So this is something that I find is our approach is quite different as well. And there is also less risk as well, because you bring in a VA for 20 hours, 40 hours to begin with. There's a lot of time involved with, taking them through your documents, getting them up and running. And if they don't work out after a couple of months, all that time is wasted. So by going with, a couple of hours a week to begin with, it gives you a low risk ability to bring in and try out a VA in your business. So that is a really key point here as well. So once we've got the process doc figured out, once we know which tasks we want to allocate the VA, we can then look to bring the VA on a part-time basis to begin with. That allows us to free up more time for us as business owners, which helps us to grow our company quicker. As we grow, the business creates more profit. It allows us to feed back in here, pay the VA for more hours, and that frees up even more time for us as business owners. So what you see is this, reinforced sort of cycle where it frees up more of your time. You grow your business, you free up more of your time, so more and more of your time is spent on growth. So that's how you get these businesses that can accelerate, really quickly. So those 2 points are really key. The third point here is something that is really important, because the reality is that you don't need an office manager or a VA to be sat next to you in your office anymore. That is just not necessary. You can find a VA. It could be in your town, but it could also be somewhere completely different, in a different part of the country. It could even be someone overseas. And whether you bring in an overseas VA who could potentially be cheaper than someone in in the country where you live, that's a different discussion to have, the pros and cons. But where we are getting with this point is that because they are not going to be sat next to you in the vast majority of cases, we need to have our technology, as much of our technology, in the cloud as possible. So that means if someone is taking the phones, taking client calls, they need to be able to log into their, to their online telephony portal, whether it's Ring Central or, whatever online software you're using. If the phone was a physical phone in the office, and you wanted to bring in a VA, the fact that the phone is a physical phone in the office, you would need to find someone locally to take those calls. But by having phone software like a Ring Central, it allows you to log in and take those calls and make those calls wherever you are in the world, as long as you have the internet access and the login details to that software. You can say the same thing. Email is a more obvious one, because we all know that we can log into our email wherever we are in the world. So these are just a couple of examples, but we should think about all the processes in our business, all the software that we use in our business, and think, is it accessible in the cloud? Can anyone in the world access it? And the greater degree that we can do that, it means that we are able to potentially find a VA anywhere in the world. So if we could pay, say we're in the US, we could pay a VA X number of dollars an hour. But if we are finding a VA in, say, the Philippines or Southeast Asia, maybe we can pay 10%. The fact that our technology is in the cloud allows us to potentially access all this labor. So this, what we'll do is I'll do another live in the future about technology and putting, software and technology in the cloud, because that just allows you to ultimately grow your business quicker and find better people to run your business as well. So those first 3 points. And then point 4 is more of a comment about what you do once you have a VA on board, because many people think, you go through these 3 steps, you find a VA that you like, and then you can just let them, get on with running your business. And the theory is great, but, as we all know, from recruiting cleaning staff, recruitment is extremely challenging. Unfortunately, not every person we recruit it turns out to be a fantastic asset for the business. And it is exactly the same in the VA world. You may be lucky enough that your first VA that you recruit is fantastic, and they do a great job for you. They may not be very good. Or, as I was speaking to a business owner earlier today, they had a VA who was with them for about 3 or 4 years. They thought they were doing a good job. I then asked them the question, how do you know they're doing a good job? And the answer was, oh, well, we have a call, they're great on the phone, really get on well with them, they've got a great attitude. And I said, well, what KPIs are you tracking for your VA? So you need to track the performance of your VA. You need to understand things like, the response, a client emails in, what is the response time of that VA to that client? So, is it 2 hours? Is it 10 minutes? Obviously, the quicker the response, the better generally. The other thing is, if they're taking your calls, are they picking up every call? What percentage of calls are they missing? And many people who have VAs in their business don't track these KPIs. They don't know how to track these KPIs either. So this is something just to be aware of. If you're in this initial phase of trying to recruit and onboard a VA, then we need to think that is not job done. We then need to figure out how do we make sure that VA is doing a good job for you. It keeps, it makes it very simple for us and them. It's good for them to know that, we need our response time to emails to be X minutes, or we need to be picking up at least, say, 90% of our calls, or, by having these guidelines in place, these KPIs, it helps us as business owners, but it also helps our VAs as well. So this is a really key point here, to make sure that when we bring on a VA, that they're doing a good job, because a good VA will be worth so much to your business. A bad VA will just drag the growth down of your business. So really important that we know how we are tracking performance, and what happens if the performance is not what we hope for. So I hope that's been helpful for you guys. As I said, these sessions are half an hour. Just quickly jump in Facebook and have a look at any questions that you guys might have. As I said, the top section really, emphasizing how important it is that you've got a VA, and the idea is, because us as business owners, we should be focusing as much of our time as possible on growth strategy. A VA allows us to free up the time to do that. And then when we're getting involved with actually trying to find a VA, your process handbook is the start. Have a look at the live from a couple of weeks where I talk about systems and processes. Then find a VA to do a handful of hours to begin with. And then as you grow your business and create more profit, you can then give them more and more hours, and that frees up even more of your time to grow your business. And then these 2 final points are equally as important, in making sure your technology is cloud-based as much as possible. And then finally, as you embed and onboard a VA, how to figure out, how to understand if they're doing a good job or not. So what I'll do is I'll quickly just jump into Facebook. Hi, Chris. If there's any questions, even after the live, just drop them in there and I can come back to you on that side. Let me just have a quick look at on Zoom. So Becky says, how do you handle confidentiality? How do I handle confidentiality? So I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to there, Becky. Are you talking about client confidentiality? Are you talking about VAs having access to client data? I'm assuming that's the case. So so confidentiality, is exactly, there's nothing specific that we do there. So one of the things that we do is that all our logins for all our software, our email management, our scheduling software, we give our VAs separate login details for them there. And if for whatever reason they stop working with us, we just obviously remove that login access. So the way that they deal with data and information is something that we obviously run through in depth at the beginning when we onboard them. But if there is something specific that you're worried about or thinking about with confidentiality, Becky, then obviously that's something that you can pick up from any previous experience, and depending on where you recruit these VAs, that's when it makes sense that if they've got specific industry experience or specific experience with what you want and the task that you're wanting them to do, that obviously helps. Yeah, confidentiality is super important. Data and client information and all those sorts of things. This goes back to what I was saying here, these low risk tasks. You can there are lots of administrative tasks that you can do in your business that doesn't give those VAs any access to client data. You could get them to crunch numbers or create analyze some data or anything like that. So I hope that's answered your question, Becky. I'm not sure if it's 100%, but just send me a message if there's something specific on that side. So I hope you guys found that useful. As I said, these sessions are half an hour. The idea is I don't want to keep you on the online for too long. As I said, I hope if you found it useful, like the video, send me a comment. Any questions, drop me a comment. I'll come back to you. If you're watching this on YouTube on the recording, then subscribe, hit subscribe, and you'll get notified of future lives as well. So I hope that's been helpful. We obviously cover this in a lot more detail. This is a key module in my my coaching program, the 7-Figure Cleaning Academy. So if you guys would like some further information on that, I will just drop the link below the video, and you can just take a look and see what's covered in the program and testimonials, and you can drop me a message and book a call if you want to find out a bit more about that. So I hope today's been useful. What we're going to cover next week is how to use LinkedIn to grow your commercial cleaning business. So how to add commercial clients with LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is our #1 marketing channel for getting new commercial leads, and lots of you are getting in touch with me asking about how to grow commercial, how to add new contracts. So that's what we will cover off in next week's presentation. So I hope that's been helpful. I hope you guys have a great rest of the day and rest of the week, and I will see you guys next week. Take care. Thanks.